It was a dark, cold night when I arrived at the train station in Pennsylvania. My final destination was Chicago, where I had a job interview. But first, I had a layover in a small, forgotten rural town. At first, it didn't seem strange to me. After all, less traffic train stations are usually lonely and desolate. But something about that night made me feel uneasy. The train I boarded in New York was delayed. The empty station echoed with the sound of my footsteps on the wooden floor. I looked around and noticed the peeling walls, the flickering lights, and the heavy atmosphere hanging in the air. It was the kind of place where untold stories, hidden secrets, and forgotten tragedies could be felt. I decided to sit on a bench under a dim, yellowish lamp. I took out my phone to distract myself while I waited. I had a few hours before the next train would take me to my final destination. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my hand, breaking the silence of the station. I looked at the screen. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Hello?" I asked, confused. A soft, barely audible voice whispered on the other end. "Don't trust the man in the hat." My skin crawled, and a chill ran down my spine. What? Who was that person? I couldn't tell if it was a prank or a wrong number. My mind tried to rationalize it, but fear started to grow inside me. I decided to ignore it and hung up quickly, thinking it wasn't worth paying any more attention to. I kept staring at the station, feeling as if an invisible presence was watching me. That's when, without warning, I saw a man on the opposite platform. He was standing still, staring at me, and wearing a black hat that partially obscured his face. The connection with the voice on the phone hit me like a wave of terror. I kept staring, frozen, as the man slowly began walking toward me. Suddenly, the phone rang again. My heart jumped in my chest. I answered without thinking. "He's watching you," the voice said, this time clearer and more definite. Fear enveloped me like a cold blanket. I looked at the man in the black hat, now halfway down the platform. I felt that something was wrong. My mind screamed that I should move away, but my body was stuck to the bench, as if I couldn't move. The man kept walking, getting closer with every step. I took a deep breath and got up, walking quickly toward a more illuminated area. The dim light of the street lamps on the platform offered me a sense of safety, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. I looked back and my stomach sank. The man was much closer than I thought. His figure was so dark it seemed to merge with the shadows, and his footsteps echoed in the silence, growing louder. My mind was in a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. What did he want? What did all of this mean? I decided to run. I ran toward the small ticket office, the old wooden door slightly ajar. I entered, quickly closing the door behind me. The office was covered in dust, the air thick and old. There was no one inside. My eyes began to scan the room, looking for something that might help me understand what was happening. That's when I saw a yellowed photograph on the wall. It was an old photo, faded by time, but something about it stopped me dead in my tracks. It was a black and white photo of a train crash. I could see the shattered carriage and the crowd of people gathered around the scene, some looking at the camera, others in a state of absolute panic. I slowly approached, trying to study the faces of the people in the photo. Something caught my attention, one particular figure. A man wearing a black hat, like the one I had seen at the station, was standing among the wreckage, staring at the camera. A chill ran to my body, and the air in the room grew even heavier. The man in the photo looked identical to the one who had been watching me. My breathing grew faster. My mind began making connections I didn't want to make. I looked around desperately, searching for something, anything, that might give me answers. My eyes stopped on a small table. There was an old ticket, nearly disintegrated by time. I bent down, trembling, and picked it up in my hands. It was a train ticket, just like the one I had bought for my trip, but with a different date, the same station, the same train number. A feeling of horror overwhelmed me. My mind was about to explode, but my body kept moving, pushed by an inexplicable impulse. I looked at the photo again, and just then, the ticket crumbled in my hands, turning into dust. With my pulse racing and fear consuming me, I looked toward the office door. The man in the black hat was standing there in the doorway, staring at me. His presence was so palpable that the air around him seemed to weigh down. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. The sound of a train could be heard in the distance, interrupting the absolute silence of the station. It felt as though time had stopped. I looked at the man one last time before realizing the horrible truth. He wasn't alive. Neither were the people in the photo. The train that had derailed 50 years ago had claimed their souls, and somehow I was part of their grim fate. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the station windows. The phone didn't ring. The man in the black hat was no longer there. The train I was supposed to board that night, the same one that had appeared in the photo, had derailed, killing all the passengers, including those who had never left that place. I will never travel by train again. I didn't plan to end up here. It was supposed to be just another hike, a way to clear my head and escape the monotony of everyday life. The remote trails of Oregon were my sanctuary. The dense green walls of trees, a comforting shield from the rest of the world. But the forest, it had other plans for me. The trail was familiar at first, winding to the towering pines, the smell of damp earth and moss filling my lungs. My boots crunched against the undergrowth, a steady rhythm that matched my heartbeat. But as the sun dipped lower, a creeping unease settled in. The trail markers I'd been following seemed to vanish, replaced by endless trees that looked unnervingly identical. I pulled out my phone, hoping for GPS. No signal. Typical. I sighed, considering my options when it happened. The phone rang. The shrill sound sliced through the silence, startling me. I didn't recognize the number, but out here, any call could be a lifeline. Hello? I answered, my voice tight with unease. Follow my voice, a calm, steady tone instructed. It was a man's voice, firm but not unkind. I'll guide you to safety. Relief flooded me. A ranger, maybe? Someone who'd seen me veer off course? Thank you. I stammered, already walking. I think I'm lost. I know, the voice replied. Something about the way he said it, so certain, so final, made me hesitate. But the alternative was wandering aimlessly in the growing darkness. I followed. Each step felt heavier, the forest growing darker and more oppressive. The voice continued, directing me left, right, straight ahead. I tried to push down the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. After what felt like hours, I saw it, a cabin, old and weathered, its wooden planks warped with age. My heart sank and soared at the same time. Shelter, at least. As I approached, the last rays of sunlight caught something carved into the door. It was my name. My breath hitched. How? Why? My thoughts spiraled, but I couldn't bring myself to turn away. I stepped inside. The interior was sparse. Just a table, a single chair, and a dusty mirror hanging crookedly on the far wall. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of rot and damp wood. I was still processing the strange familiarity of the place when my phone rang again. This time it was different. The caller ID showed my own name. My fingers trembled as I answered. Hello. I whispered. Don't let her in. My own voice said, distorted and low. The line went dead. A knock echoed to the cabin, loud and insistent. My heart pounded as I turned to face the door. Who's there? I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. Another knock, harder this time. Against every instinct screaming at me to stay away, I opened the door. Standing there was me, pale, lifeless, my eyes hollow and skin ashen. This doppelganger stared at me with an expression I couldn't place. Desperation? Pity? It raised a skeletal finger and pointed past me, into the forest, where a faint trail marked with bones twisted into the darkness. I wanted to scream, to slam the door, to run, but I couldn't move. My other self opened its mouth, and though no sound came out, I felt its words echo inside my skull. The trail is yours to take. There's no turning back. The world tilted, the cabin spinning around me. I fell, hitting the ground hard. When I opened my eyes, I was outside, lying on the forest floor. The cabin was gone. I staggered to my feet, disoriented and shaking. In my hand was a photograph. The edges were charred, but the image was unmistakable. Me, standing at the door of the cabin, about to enter. My head throbbed as fragmented memories surfaced. Of the cabin, the voice, the knock. But how'd I escape? I didn't remember leaving. I stumbled back to civilization, the forest seemingly spitting me out onto a trailhead I didn't recognize. My phone was dead, the screen cracked, yet I could still hear it, faint and far away, as if in a dream. Don't let her in. Weeks passed, but the calls didn't stop. No matter where I was, no matter how many times I changed my number, the phone would ring. Sometimes it was my voice, repeating the warning. Other times it was silence, broken only by the sound of leaves rustling, as if the forest itself was whispering to me. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the trail of bones, the hollow gaze of my double, the cabin door with my name carved into it. I've tried to go back. God knows I've tried. But no matter how many trails I take, I can't find it. The forest won't let me. Or maybe it's waiting for me to follow the voice again.